Jake Paul goes on some of the most expensive vacations on the planet, from spending $500,000 just to jet ski in Utah with Whistling Diesel to going all out on a multi-million-dollar vacation in Dubai. Jake Paul is as crazy as they come. These are the most expensive things he owns. We can't start any video about Jake Paul without mentioning his love for weird necklaces. Even before he became a massive star, Jake loved collecting unique necklaces anywhere he went. So once he blew up, he knew he had to get one with his infamous nickname. Dubbed the Problem Child piece, Jake Paul drops $225,000 on a diamond chain with the words Problem Child engraved on it. Even though the piece was made with 95 carats of VS quality diamond on 14 karat gold, it wasn't enough to satisfy Jake, who commissioned a $500,000 MVP wrestling belt. The craziest part about this custom belt was that it had several slots of Jake's Rolexes, and to make it look even wilder, it had a Birkin bag attached to it. And don't even get us started on Jake's watch game, because he flexes watches like a $200,000 Richard Mille, a $120,000 Patek Philippe, and a $450,000 Jacob & Co. Bugatti Chiron Tourbillon like it's nothing. If you think Jake Paul's decision-making skills so far haven't been impressive, wait till you hear about Jake Paul's decision-making, because his next move was creating a piece that was a direct insult to one of the deadliest fighters in the world. Only someone as crazy as Jake Paul would find a way to piss off Conor McGregor with a $100,000 chain that depicted McGregor's embarrassing loss to Dustin Poirier at UFC 257. You don't need to be a genius to know how badly it could end when you antagonize someone like McGregor. But apparently, Jake Paul had balls of steel, because that was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to stupid decisions. You definitely don't want to make the same mistake Jake Paul makes. So why not subscribe to the channel? Because it's way less scary than challenging Conor McGregor. Now, back to Jake Paul's next impulsive idea, and this time it involves a huge robot that comes alive whenever Jake's about to step into the ring. Everyone knows Jake loves to attract as much attention to himself as possible, and we were expecting some crazy stunts once he kickstarted his boxing career. But no one could have expected a $200,000 robot man to accompany him to all his events. The robot even has a mini screen on its chest where you can watch videos of Jake Paul bullying his opponents. As if an obnoxious robot wasn't enough, Jake Paul thought it was a good idea to spend his money on a vacation with the most insufferable man on the planet, Whistling Diesel. If you don't know who that is, he's a guy from YouTube who does the most barbaric things you could imagine for supercars, and Jake Paul went on a gnarly vacation with him to Utah. It was an extreme sports bonanza with jet skis, jumping off yachts, wave surfing at night, and even jumping up a huge cliff. It's no wonder the little vacation costs Jake $500,000. But despite getting flung around in a helicopter, Jake wasn't ready to call it quits. So he went to Dubai to run it back again. Only this time, he did things a little differently with a whole lot more money, $1 million worth. If you're wondering why it costs $1 million for a simple vacation, you might want to take a look at the stacked activities, because it wasn't any ordinary vacation. Jake Paul had his crew staying in an underwater hotel with lots of underwater activities like scuba diving and playing underwater pool. While out of his hotel, Jake went on a crazy joyride with some of the best luxury cars Dubai had to offer. We're talking about Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bugattis. You can't really say you went to Dubai without going on a safari, so Jake Paul made sure to find his way in the desert while feeding exotic animals he saw on the way. Despite his wild vacation, Jake still made it in time for the fight between Mayweather and Deji, and you just know he had one of the best seats in the house. After seeing how much money was made during the fight, Jake Paul had the genius idea to create his own betting company. Seeing how tough it was in the gambling industry, he decided he was going to give away $1 million to one lucky winner who used his gambling app. Jake Paul might see it as giving back, but it doesn't fool us because we know it's just another ploy to get people hooked on gambling. While Jake isn't busy boxing or planning his next video, he often throws wild parties for close friends, but they all pale in comparison to what he did for his first date with his girlfriend. Instead of going for a coffee date like a regular guy, Jake went out with a massive surprise, seeing him renting out an amusement park for the whole day. His girl didn't have to worry about the long lines or requirement for rides because he made everything to her liking. And once they were done, Jake Paul took the party home with another big surprise. This time, he had his buddies throw a massive party with lots of guests, and they even filled his house with foam. And you couldn't walk around without getting foam all over your face. Everything for his big date cost $250,000 to arrange. And by now, you might be thinking that Jake Paul is a literal douchebag, but he isn't always like this. Sometimes he even gives back to charity, like the time he created a $1 million nonprofit called Boxing for Bullies to teach kids how to stand up to their bullies. The foundation spent a whole lot of money renovating gyms in the United States and Puerto Rico, so you can say he knows how to do some good work. That being said, the one time Jake is allowed to act like a complete knucklehead is when he is flexing with his impressive car collection. Way back in 2017, Jake Paul thought it was a good idea to prank Logan with a Lamborghini Aventador for his birthday, and you can see the joy leaving his soul once he finds out that it's all a prank.
Oh my gosh! This might be one of the best moments of my life.
Don't cry.
I'm not crying. What
Don't
makes you
cry.
think I'm crying?
You're gonna look like you're crying.
I'm sweating from my eyes. Like, that's all. Like, I was getting a pumping and my eyes are sweating.
Don't cry.
I'm sweating from my eyes.
Don't cry.
I don't cry, I'm a man. No way.
Hey, you guys sold my car yet? What are you guys doing?
That might have been a soul-crushing prank, but these days, Jake rides around in the sickest cars ever made, like the Ferrari 458 Italia. And as sick as this car looks, Jake had to step things up with another Ferrari, and it was none other than the Ferrari SF90 Spider, which he copped for $600,000. With two cars that can go from 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds, Jake needed something for his off-road adventures. So he got the massive $100,000 Dodge Ram. To make sure he wasn't missing out on electric vehicles, Jake Paul reached out to Elon Musk to get hooked up with a $120,000 Tesla Model X. And it looks like he enjoyed riding around in a car that was good for the environment, because he stepped it up by buying a $150,000 Tesla Cybertruck soon after. Even though Jake had some of the fastest street-legal cars on the planet, it didn't mean much if he couldn't get his dream car, which turned out to be a Lamborghini Huracan Performante, and he followed that up with a Porsche GT3 RS, and both cars cost him a whopping $600,000. But he wasn't finished, because he still had a few cars on his list. He knew you can't always go driving around in sports cars, so he got himself a top-of-the-line Rolls-Royce Phantom for $440,000. Despite cars that barely fit into his garage, the weirdest on Jake's list has to be the mini G-Wagon golf carts, which look like actual G-Wagons. Only a nut job like Jake Paul would actually own two $25,000 golf carts that look like top-of-the-line German supercars, while owning a $200,000 white G-Wagon. Don't let Jake Paul's love for weird-looking cars fool you. He also knows what it feels like to travel via air in style with his $30 million private jet. On one of his trips from New York, Jake might have done something to anger the gods because his plane was almost struck down by lightning during a storm. Luckily for Jake and the crew, all Zeus wanted was to remind Jake that he needs to be humble, but we don't think he got the message. With a $3 million car collection, Jake was living life like a prince. But what took him to the next level was his real estate portfolio, which got bigger as time went by. Once that YouTube money started rolling in, Jake Paul knew that he had to own a home, so he did the sensible thing by putting down roots with a $6.9 million mansion in the heart of Calabasas, California. Apart from being close to other celebrities, Jake's 15,000 square foot home was what you'd expect from a loudmouthed brat with a lot of money, like 8 bedrooms with enough space to hold a small rave, a swimming pool, and 3 different hot tubs. Jake and his crew needed all the hot tubs they could get, and that's just scratching the surface. The house also featured boring stuff, like a sauna, a modern gym, a walk-in wine cellar, and an elevator. Even though the property was stacked, Jake would only stay there a few years before setting his eyes on a property in Puerto Rico that would blow you away. For starters, Jake's Puerto Rico mansion has a lot more space than his old mansion, which means Jake could tweak his new home with things like a huge astronaut statue on the outside and a lot of creepy ape statues on the inside. He also styled the mansion with unique art that makes the home feel like a modern museum, and it doesn't stop there. He has a room dedicated to his sneakers, which overlooks his massive fish tank. Don't forget the game room and workstation. It's easy to see why this mansion cost Jake Paul $16 million, because it has everything he would ever need. And it's a pity he is so busy, he barely spends time at his wonderful home.